Nathan Hayes, a self-made billionaire, had built an empire, but fate had a twist waiting for him. A chance encounter reunites him with his old college friend, Leah Monroe, only to discover she's now struggling as a waitress. She once helped him when he had nothing, shaping the man he is today. Now, she's the one in need. Stick around. What he does next will leave you speechless. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from and subscribe to enjoy more powerful narratives like this one. Let's begin. Nathan Hayes had conquered the world. His name echoed in boardrooms, was printed across business magazines, and trended in financial circles. From tech to real estate, his empire stretched across industries, leaving an undeniable mark. People admired him, envied him, even feared him. But they didn't really know him, not the way he had once been. Beneath the wealth and power, Nathan was still the broke college kid who had once sat in the back of lecture halls, hiding worn-out shoes under the desk. The young man who had struggled to scrape together tuition money, who had spent nights in the library hoping hunger wouldn't distract him from the textbooks he couldn't afford. If it weren't for one person, he might never have made it. Leah Monroe. She had been more than just the smartest student in their class. Leah had been his lifeline, offering help without hesitation, expecting nothing in return. When he couldn't afford his textbooks, she quietly lent him hers. When his tuition was short, she covered the balance without ever mentioning it. And when doubt crept in, when he felt like giving up, she had been there, reminding him that he had potential, that he was more than his circumstances. She had believed in him when no one else had. Yet, as life pulled him forward, success had created a distance he never intended. He hadn't seen Leah in years, hadn't spoken to her, hadn't searched for her. The realization pressed on his chest like an overdue debt. Where was she now? What had become of the woman who had once saved him? His return to Fort Lauderdale was strictly business. Another high-stakes meeting, another deal that could reshape his empire. He could have stayed at one of his luxury penthouses, but instead, he chose a modest hotel near the business district. It wasn't about comfort, it was about remembering. As he lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, the memories of Leah felt heavier than ever. The next morning, as he reviewed financial projections for the day ahead, a knock sounded at the door. "Room service," a soft voice called out. "Come in," he answered absent-mindedly, eyes still scanning through numbers. The door opened. There was a pause, longer than expected. Something about the silence made Nathan glance up. The tray in the waitress's hands trembled slightly. She was dressed in a simple uniform, her dark brown hair pulled back into a neat ponytail. But it wasn't the uniform that sent a shockwave through him. It was her face. His breath caught in his throat. Leah Monroe. Time stilled as Nathan shot to his feet, the chair scraping against the floor. "Leah?" he said, almost disbelieving his own voice. The woman in front of him stiffened, her brow furrowing slightly. "I?" She hesitated, studying him with confusion, but there was no recognition in her eyes. "It's me," he said, stepping closer, his voice filled with urgency. "Nathan Hayes? From college?" Leah's lips parted slightly. The name flickered in her mind, like a distant memory struggling to surface. And then, all at once, realization hit. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock. "Nathan?" A slow, breathless chuckle escaped her lips as she shook her head. "You were the quiet kid with the old leather backpack. Always sitting in the back row." "That's me," Nathan said, a mixture of relief and disbelief washing over him. For a fleeting moment, warmth passed between them, a shared past that neither of them had expected to collide with the present. But then, Leah's smile faltered. She glanced away, her fingers tightening around the tray she was holding. Nathan's stomach twisted as he really looked at her, the exhaustion lining her face, the faint shadows beneath her eyes, the quiet weariness in her posture. This wasn't right. Leah had been destined for so much more. "You're working here?" His voice was softer now, careful, as if he already knew he wouldn't like the answer. She exhaled sharply, setting the tray down. "Yeah," she said simply, her tone unreadable. "Pays the bills." Nathan's chest tightened. How the hell did this happen? "Leah, what happened?" Nathan's voice was laced with concern. "You were the smartest person in our class. I always thought you'd be running the world by now." Leah hesitated. For a moment, it seemed like she wasn't going to answer, but then she let out a sigh. "Life happened, Nathan." Her voice was quiet, but the weight behind those words was crushing. She told him everything. How her parents' divorce had been more than just messy, it had torn her family apart. How she had been forced to drop out of her post-grad program to take care of her sick mother. How, after her mother passed, she lost everything, her home, her financial stability, her future. She tried to get back on her feet, but without a degree, no one was willing to take a chance on her. I sent out hundreds of applications, she admitted, forcing a small, bitter smile. Nothing, so I took whatever I could get. I've been managing. The word stung. This woman had given so much, helped him when she had nothing to gain, and now life had given her nothing in return. Nathan clenched his jaw, anger bubbling in his chest. Not at her, but at the unfairness of it all. You didn't deserve this, Leah. His voice was quiet but firm. Not after everything you've done for people. Not after everything you did for me. She gave a small shrug, her expression unreadable. Life isn't about what you deserve. It's about what happens. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Nathan studied her, his mind already racing. He couldn't let this be her reality. Not after everything she had done for him. Not when he had the power to change it. He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. Leah, listen to me, he said, his voice steady with conviction. That changes today. She frowned slightly, tilting her head. What do you mean? Nathan stood, his decision already made. He wasn't going to just offer her a helping hand. He was going to pull her back up where she belonged. You once saved me, he said, meeting her gaze. Now it's my turn to save you. Leah stared at Nathan, a wary expression creeping into her features. Save me? She echoed, as if the words didn't quite fit together. Nathan nodded, his gaze unwavering. You don't belong here, Leah. You never did. You had the kind of brilliance that made people stop and listen, the kind of drive that should have taken you anywhere you wanted to go, and look at what life did to you. His voice dropped lower, filled with something raw. You didn't just help me, you changed my life, and now I'm going to change yours. Leah let out a small, breathless chuckle, but there was no humor in it. Nathan, come on. This isn't some charity case. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but it's not charity, he interrupted, leaning forward. It's justice. Leah's lips pressed into a thin line. She pulled her hand away from his, folding her arms across her chest as if she were bracing herself. And what exactly do you think you're going to do? I want you to come work for me, Nathan said simply. Leah blinked. What? Not just work for me, he continued. I want you to be my partner. She let out a sharp laugh, shaking her head. Nathan, I haven't worked in years. I wouldn't even know where to start. You didn't know calculus when we first took that advanced math class, he shot back. But you figured it out and taught half the class, including me. You didn't know how to navigate college bureaucracy, but you did it anyway when you fought for me to get an extension on my tuition. Leah, you're one of the smartest people I've ever met, and I know, you'll thrive in this. Leah bit her lip, her eyes flickering with something vulnerable. And what if I fail? Nathan's expression softened. Then we'll figure it out together, just like we did back then. She stared at him for a long moment, her defenses visibly crumbling. But when she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. I don't even have a place to stay, Nathan. His answer came without hesitation. You do now. I have a beach house here in Fort Lauderdale. It's yours. No rent, no expectations, just a fresh start. Leah shook her head, overwhelmed. This is crazy. Nathan smiled, leaning back. No, crazy is letting someone like you waste away in a job that's beneath you. For the first time since she walked into that hotel room, Leah had no argument left. A week later, Leah stood in front of the massive glass doors of Hayes International Headquarters. Her heart pounded as she smoothed the front of the tailored blazer Nathan had insisted she buy. It had been years since she'd stepped into an environment like this. Years since she'd felt like she belonged anywhere other than survival mode. Nathan's voice pulled her out of her thoughts. You ready? She turned to find him standing beside her, his confidence so effortless it almost irritated her. She let out a slow breath. No, he grinned. Good. That means you're about to do something worth doing. With that, he pushed open the doors, leading her into a world she had once dreamed of, but never thought she'd have again. The transition wasn't easy. The business world had evolved since she last touched it, and Leah quickly realized just how much she had missed. But Nathan never wavered. He made sure she had every tool she needed, introduced her to his team, and ensured she received the training necessary to grow into her role. And despite her initial doubts, Leah found that she hadn't lost her edge. She caught on to concepts faster than she expected, found herself taking charge in meetings she was originally supposed to observe, and, more than anything, realized just how much she had needed this. But just as she began to rebuild, a part of her still hesitated, because deep down, she couldn't shake the fear that this was temporary, that at any moment, reality would come crashing down, and she'd be right back where she started. And then life tested her. One evening, as Leah and Nathan reviewed a proposal in his office, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and instantly felt her stomach drop. Nathan noticed immediately. "What is it?" Leah hesitated before setting her phone down. "It's nothing, just an old friend." Nathan narrowed his eyes. "Leah?" She sighed, rubbing her temples. "It's a girl I used to work with at the diner. She's about to lose her apartment. She doesn't have anywhere to go." Nathan studied her, his expression unreadable. "What do you want to do?" Leah swallowed hard. "I want to help her." She shook her head, a sad smile on her lips. "She was there for me when I had nothing. It doesn't feel right to turn my back on her now." Nathan leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. Then, after a beat, he nodded. "Then let's help her together." Leah blinked. "You mean that?" Nathan smirked. "Leah, I'm a billionaire. What good is all this money if I can't use it to help people who actually deserve it?" For the first time, Leah realized something. This wasn't just about her redemption. Nathan had changed. The kid who had once been desperate to survive had become a man determined to lift others up. And suddenly, Leah wasn't just rebuilding her life. She was building something bigger than herself. Months passed, and Leah didn't just excel, she thrived. With Nathan's encouragement, she took the lead on projects, brought in fresh ideas, and even started initiatives to help struggling individuals who, like her, had been left behind by the system. One afternoon, Nathan called her into his office. He slid a small box across the desk. "What's this?" she asked, raising a brow. "Open it." She lifted the lid, and inside was a key. Confused, she glanced up. "Nathan, what is this?" He grinned. "Your division." She froze. Nathan leaned forward, his tone gentle but firm. "You're officially heading up our new charity arm. I figured if anyone knows how to help others get back on their feet, it's you." Leah's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what to say." Nathan smiled. "Say you'll keep being the incredible person you've always been." And in that moment, Leah knew. Her life had truly changed. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of her beach house, watching the ocean waves roll in, Leah turned to Nathan, her expression soft. "If it weren't for you, I don't know where I'd be right now," she admitted. Nathan smiled, shaking his head. "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have made it through college. You saved me, Leah. I'm just returning the favor." She let out a quiet laugh, eyes shimmering. "You did so much more than that. You reminded me of who I am. You gave me my life back." Nathan nodded, his voice steady. "Together, we're unstoppable." As the waves crashed below them and stars filled the sky, they both understood their story was never just about redemption. It was about compassion, resilience, and the extraordinary power of second chances. Life has a way of bringing people back together when they least expect it. Nathan and Leah's story is a powerful reminder that kindness never goes unnoticed, and sometimes the people we lift up will one day return to lift us even higher. What would you do if you had the power to change someone's life? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful tale. And if this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because second chances can change everything. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.